Good news, everyone! I have returned. But yes, you saw the video title. You got to be f***ing me. Oh, geez, Stern. Really? Alright, well, too late to complain. Might as well just one up. That's right, 40 designs. I know with Stellar it's technically supposed to be 38, but I did something that made it 40, so suck on that. But no, honestly, Stern, keep doing what you're doing. I'm just playing it up for comedy's sake. Also, for this video, I tried to get a good mix of large channels, small channels, and everything in between. It was a little tricky, but I think I managed it. Well, let's just get into it. Starting off, we have Poison. For some reason, I always seem to like putting Poison at like the front of these every type videos. Don't really have a reason, but the Hoof GP. You know those like pimple popping videos? This is like an actual useful application of that. Because what the Hoof GP does, clean, trim, and provide care to cattle hooves. And I actually have some experience on the topic, which comes into play for the actual Mon design. You see, they have specific chutes made for trimming cattle hooves, and these specific chutes are used because it's a lot easier on both the cattle and the people. And the way these specific chutes usually work is that they are attached to a mechanism. Then this mechanism picks them up and puts them on their side. Then you can open the bottom, strap the feet so they don't kick around, hurt themselves or others, and then get to trimming. Now, of course, there are variations, but that seems to be the most common one. And with the whole poison thing, I thought mixing the chute idea with just a giant, like, container was a pretty interesting idea. So a giant container that contains a bunch of bad gases and sickness and pus, all the disgusting stuff, mixed with like the chute used to actually help clean and treat cattle hooves, felt like a good idea, which led to Catcher. You know, from cattle capture. Pretty simple. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. And as for a full team, I didn't really do that for this one because it's like Trainer and Ace. But I do definitely think some of the more healing mons like Blissey and some of the cattle mon like Meltank or Tauros. But like aside from that, not really much else. So, Poison entry out of the way, Hoof GP, and Catcher. And if you're one of the people in this video, seeing this video, which let's be honest, chances very low, I made these designs in your likeness, do whatever you want with them. React to the video, make a twit longer about how I'm the worst person alive ever. Even just like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want with it, it's in your image. Just like, don't whip out the cease and desist, please. Then, for number 2, let's do Ice. Ice is also one that is oddly at the front of a lot of these videos for me. Probably have to change that later, but we'll figure it out later. Anyway, when it came to Ice, I had a few options, but I ultimately decided on resin. So if you don't know what resin is, basically it's it's an art tool that starts liquid, then hardens. And north of the border just so happens to do that. Resin sculptures, which I felt I could work with. And it got me thinking, okay, we're doing ice, we're doing resin, because resin kind of is similar to ice. There are creatures that get trapped in ice, I can work with that. But also I need a cold animal, Beluga, trapping a Gyarados in ice, and using it as arms. Yes, that works. There was also another inspiration. It's ice ghost type, and that's because of its other inspiration, which is a cryptid called the Ningen. Basically, pale creatures with either no arms but long legs, or no legs but long arms. It's weird, honestly. But I figured take the Beluga, mix it with this, add the ice resin capture thing, and it works. Also, for north of the border, I don't think he's ever revealed his face, but like that's not really a detriment. When making designs like this, you just gotta get more creative. For instance, goggles, because paint, fumes, same with like the mask, bandana thing. Like, you can have a good design without having to show the face. But, there we go, Belugan. From, of course, Beluga, Resin, and Ningen, which gives us our second entry, Ice type, north of the border, and Belugan. Next, at number 3 is Ground, which, I kind of had to get creative. So, there's a lot of things I could do for Ground, but I felt Archaeology was kind of fair, because, you know, Golurk, Claydol, ground types that have an ancient vibe. So, Ground definitely could work, which led me to Archaeologists, which gave me Milo, aka Mini Minuteman. And since this whole thing is archaeology, history, past stuff, I wanted to try and do something interesting. So like, I'm gonna try and say something science-y or history-y. Chances are I'm gonna fail, and like Milo, if you see this, let's be honest, chances low, but feel free to correct me and call me an idiot. So to start out, I wanted to do something based off terracotta soldiers, because like I needed that sort of clay-based thing for ground type. And I didn't just want to do a terracotta soldier, because obviously, and I didn't know this, but terracotta soldiers were in Qin Shi Huang's temple, or it was something, but high chances are this was some sort of funeral thing, like immortalizing the warriors of his time or something. Though, something else interesting, and Chinese related, from what I could figure out, I think King Shi Huang and his empire were also responsible for the Great Wall of China, and was made to deal with invasions from the, was it Asian steppe? I almost said European, but that didn't make sense, so Asian steppe? Yeah, I guess. But my point is, Qin Shi Huang, Qin Dynasty, terracotta soldiers, Great Wall of China. I don't know, I feel that works pretty well. Tie it all together in a nice little bow, then you have Terrakin, a terracotta soldier named after the Qin Dynasty. I don't know, I think it's pretty good. Once again, maybe not the most correct on the science stuff, but like, who knows? Maybe I am. Anyway, ground rock type, because, you know, Great Wall of China's rock, and then terracotta army, hardened clay, but, you know, terracotta. The same stuff in concept as like Golurk. But, coming in at number 3, ground type option, Mini Minuteman and Terrakin. Moving on to typing 4, Dragon. Now, for Dragon, I had a lot of options, because, like, I could do really just about anything. But I ultimately decided on a smaller YouTuber called the Pokémon channel, because his profile picture is a Dragon-type evolution. Now, that could obviously change in future endeavors, but for now, it's fine. Once again, a character design that you don't really have to make anything specific. You don't have to have a face to make a good character. For the trainer, I just translated the evolution into like some Super Sentai armor. And as for the partner Pokemon, that was a lot trickier. I decided to try my hand at a Dragon-type evolution because, well, obviously Dragon-type evolution, which, like, honestly, mad respect to you, man, because, like, God, was that tough. Like, I'll be honest, this is one of the weaker ones in this video, not because I didn't try, but because it was actively beyond what I could do. But with this design, I took more of a Greyhound sort of aspect, sort of streamlined it. And while a lot of Eevee's evolutions boil down to, oh, it's the same but different, I wanted this one to feel, well, more sleek, slender. Mainly because I wanted to try and give it more of a serpentine look. And maybe it was trying to add that serpentine aspect that made it look not maybe the best. But it's what happened, I'll live with it. Drakion, a pure dragon type and our dragon type entry along with the Fakemon channel. As for the rest of his team, I definitely think one of the drawing based Pokemon, like Smeargle or Grafaiai. But aside from that, it would just be probably a bunch of dragon types, but who knows. Next up, we have Electric, which I had a hard time with. Of course, I could have done some kind of electrical thing, like Mechanism Gizmo guy. Like, for the dude who created that giant microwave, I could have done that. I could have done a lot of things. But I ultimately decided to try and do something different. I did want to add like a reaction YouTuber here somewhere because like that is still a genre. And like sure, a decent amount of these are going to be artist adjacent things, but like come on, I'm an art channel. Of course that's most of my feed. And there was really one reaction channel that kind of stuck out to me, and it was this school principal reacts one. Because like, this dude is a school principal and he just reacts to stuff. I think that's pretty interesting, honestly. I know there's another guy that's like a history teacher that looks at a bunch of history stuff, which honestly, good for him. But the reason I picked this guy is because he did a reaction to My Hero, and he actually talked about some stuff that most reaction channels don't really touch on, and I find that interesting. And this is like Cinderace just form changed. Believe it or not, Cinderace doesn't really have the most fire type look. Like really, if you change the colors, he doesn't look fire type, which basically just gave me the ability to alter and create an electric steel Cinderace. That's whole thing is magnetism. Levitates off the ground, shoots forward, kicks with magnetic force. Pretty simple, and of course, with the kicks and all that, the electricity, based partially on Azuka Midoriya, because like, why not? This concept is all for fun at the end of the day, so just go, do what you want. That is our electric type entry of school principal reacts and a form changed Cinderace. I don't have a specific region to slot this into, so. Next up, let's tackle steel. So, blacksmithing. That was pretty easy, and I decided to go with Conrad blacksmithing because, like, axes and hammers, I'd say that works pretty damn well. And, of course, hammers, blacksmithing, it all kind of checks out, which led me to a hammerhead shark. Look, can you really blame me? It's the most basic, easy layup possible. Wow, look, a hammerhead shark. That is a hammer. Not everything needs to be complicated, people. Which led to, of course, Hammark. A hammerhead shark. Steel water type, because cool typing. Only Empoleon, still, for some reason. Of course, one of the more simple ones, but as I mentioned previously, that's not a bad thing. But that does leave us with our steel type option of Conrad Blacksmithing and Hammark. Now moving on to number 7, and someone I watched a lot back when I was in school, Ants Canada. Now, if the name didn't make it obvious, the dude keeps ants as a hobby, like, duh. But he does keep other insects as well, and he's actually discovered some stuff about ant behavior. So, of course, for the design, I had to make an ant. But I didn't just want to make something really intimidating, because that would kind of infringe on Durant. Which led me to a small ant that's thorax is replaced with an ant farm. There are already ants that store stuff in their abdomen, for instance, honeypot ants. So in the Pokemon world, is it really that much of a stretch to believe that an ant would carry its progeny in its abdomen? Because this design really was just taking something ants already do and kicking it up to the 10, which in the end made this ground bug type called Pavement. Like, of course, pavement, but ant. And I get it, like, pavement, it's not really something you'd associate with ground. It'd be rock, probably, but, like, it is the ground. It's like pavement, it's ground, you put it there. Look, I'll be honest, I couldn't find a better name. Like, if you can think of a better name, go ahead and put it down in the comments, but, like, even I couldn't. Granted, I'm not the brightest, but, you know. Anyhow, for the rest of his team, I mean, obviously, like, Durant, Levani, the ant-based Pokemon. So anyway, our number 7 entry for the bug type, Ants Canada and Pavement. Now, for the 8th slot, I went with another channel I remember fondly from my time in school, the Kiwi Grower. And it's not kiwi because of fruit, I mean it might be, but like, it's kiwi because New Zealand. And some New Zealanders refer to themselves as Kiwis. So, the Kiwi Grower grows plants in New Zealand. Like, I'm pretty sure this guy just travels the globe now, but I don't exactly know what he's been doing in recent years. Though, what I'm basing it on is one of his older videos that has kind of always stuck with me, and that's caviar limes. Look, I like them. They're cool. That's about it. But, obviously, caviar lime, I wanted to mix it with caviar. So, okay, fish eggs, but how do I translate that to a lime? Well, turns out some breeds of cichlid actually practice mouth brooding, which, if you don't know what that is, basically they put their eggs in their mouth and then wait for them to hatch. It's actually a pretty interesting thing, but it made it pretty easy here. Caviar is fish eggs. We have a fish that broods eggs in its mouth, and the caviar lime has these little caviar-like spheres inside of it. Pretty obvious and led to Cicliar. Cichlid, caviar, caviar lime. Plain simple, easy grass water. Can't really get much easier than that. But that does lead to our number 8 slot being the Kiwi Grower and Cicliar. Also, like, mad respect, dude's built. So, following up grass, let's do fire. So, I was looking for an excuse to make an explosive mon. Captain Blast 'em. Dude's whole thing is explosives, liking to blow 'em up. Dude plays with Jerome ASF. I'm fine with messing around with that, because explosives lets me do my thing. Nucleump. You know, fire, ice, nuclear. Well, of course, you could argue fire poison because, you know, nuclear. But fire ice because, well, nuclear winter. I doubt Pokemon would ever even consider a nuke-based Pokemon. But screw it, I'm doing it. And like, look, I understand, but like, it can have the inspiration without it being like super dark. Yeah, nuclear impacts, I'll say it, not good. But it is both cool and terrifying what science can create. Like, this is the question of, we could, but should we? Science is both incredible and terrifying, and that is something that I feel really needs to be more understood. And this design helps that, so fire ice, Nucleump, leading to the 9th entry of fire with Captain Blastum and Nucleump. Also, quick sidebar here, you'll notice there's no VTubers, and that's because, quite honestly, I just don't know enough about them. Like, if you want to see them, like, sure, 5 likes on this video, I'll do a full video of it. A VTuber of every type, 5 likes and I'll do it. But just know it's going to take a while, because I am not versed in it, and that is why they're not on this list. It's not, like, intentional. I don't dislike them, it's just, like, I never watch them, for the most part. Like, there is one I watch, but it's, like, it's a small channel because I literally just have a bunch of small channels in my YouTube recommended. Now, for fighting type, I had a little less options. I could have done some sort of D&D thing, I could have done maybe a weaponry thing, but I decided, you know what, let's go different. So there's this dude called Big Daddy Saver. What he does is, he saves up in-game currency for Zenless Zone 0, and will keep saving it up until a character called Big Daddy is playable and available for, I don't know what it's called, until it's put into the gacha system. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just impressed by the dedication. Not only does Big Daddy definitely fit the fighting type look, but like Hog the animal and Hog the motorcycle, which, let's be honest, the leader was probably a bore because of the whole Hog connection in the first place. I just think it's us. I just like it. I think it's cool. And like dedication, discipline, it fits fighting. And like the character fits fighting. Like seriously, I'm flabbergasted because dedication, dear God. Like the entire chapter in which the character was relevant has passed and the dude's still at it. So like, out of sheer respect, I had to put this man on the list. Which of course led to Motorog. Which, if you remember the post I made about teasing this video, it's that one. Fighting Steel because, like, you know, Hog, boar, but also feral hog, and then, like, Hog the motorcycle, which, from what I can tell, is meant specifically to refer to Harley Davidsons. Didn't know that, but oh well. Like, all of it really did culminate pretty well into this design. And I'm sure you could argue it's too robotic for Pokemon, but, like, come on. A hog that is a hog based on a hog. It all just makes sense. But anyway, that leads to our fighting type option, Big Daddy Saver, and Motorog. Now for Dark type, it really was tricky. Specifically, Dark and Ghost are the trickier typings for this video. Well, Rock too, but you'll see I was able to do a quick mess around there and fix that. But my point is still, Dark type. Dark and Ghost, tricky typings for this video, because of course, they have some negative connotations. Though, for Dark type, Big Jiggly Panda. I've done a decent amount of Vanoss stuff on this channel, but I don't feel like I've ever stated who my favorite Vanoss crew member was. Yeah, it's Panda. Dude is the hands down funniest in the group. The jokes, the laugh, just everything. Funny as hell. And it worked really well for this dark type thing because I can avoid all negative connotations and just use the dark type panda that already exists. Mega Pangoro. Literally just took the big beefy brawler street gang aspect of the dude, boosted it. Now dude's got the cape, the pompadour, he's ready to knock your block off, throw you all the way down to Brooklyn and make him ready to spin you, drop you down in Manhattan and break your spine. Yeah, Mega Pangoro. Dark fighting. Still, of course. Big Jiggly Panda meeting the big beefy panda. I felt it was just too easy. As for the rest of the team, I don't have much of an idea, but probably throw a Ditto on there for good measure. So, for entry 11, the Dark type, Big Jiggly Panda, and Mega Pangoro. Alright, so for normal, I already kind of had an idea. Normal is the artistic type, hence Smeargirl, Gafai, all the sound-based mons. So I wanted to do some kind of singer, and I just decided on Reese Brunk, because the dude popped up in my playlist while I was thinking about this. So congratulations, you're here. As for the full design, I just decided with a stick bug, because normal bug is a typing we do not have yet, and it feels really easy to kind of fill this slot in, and it makes a unique design. And then, just because it's a stick bug, colored pencils, but also he's literally made a song called High School, so school supplies, I feel it worked fine. Also, I just like the dichotomy. Tiny, happy little stick bug with this musician. I felt it worked. Anyway, pen stick, normal bug, which gave us our normal type entry of Reese Brunk and pen stick. So Psychic was really difficult, because there's not really a lot of psychic stuff. Sure, there's space, but with the whole mind thing, it doesn't really work well. You can't really do that over YouTube, because oh, predict the future, yada yada, it doesn't work. The charade has to be in person, otherwise it just doesn't work, because you can't bullshit. Though I eventually did find Psychedelic Squid Fiber Arts. They do crochet, which, honestly, I love it. I've done crochet myself. It's very nice. I was never great at it, but I was good enough. Of course, psychedelic, psychic, duh. And of course, no real face, but that's not much of an issue. I just made a mask. And as for the main Fakemon, while yes, the thing says squid, psychedelic squid, I just went with a cuttlefish because they're the most famous for shifting colors. And squids, octopus, they all have chromatophores. So it really was just a cuttlefish with 2 tentacles it uses for knitting stuff together. And it does this in order to create a net to catch prey, leading to Crochettle. A pure psychic type because I felt the water type. I mean, if it can float, it doesn't need water. Also, I gave it a bit of an alien-esque look because, space, psychic, all that. But that ends up giving us our 13th slot, Psychedelic Squid Fiber Arts, and Crochettle. Then for flying, another channel I used to watch during my adolescence, Robert E. Fuller. Robert is basically a nature photographer as well as I want to say conservationist, but I'm not certain on that. I'm certain that he's a wildlife artist, not so much the conservationalist spot, but he does definitely do it. And his probably most famous thing is kestrels, because he and his nest cams were responsible for us seeing a kestrel male take care of the chicks while the female sadly passed. And that's something a lot of people didn't think would happen. So he really did capture some incredible stuff. And considering his whole like false tree nest things, I just went with that and made Foxhawk, a fake hawk made of wood. And I wanted to sell that it wasn't really a hawk, so it looks like a poorly put together bird, because it's not a hawk, it's a foxhawk, a fake hawk. It's wood mimicking a hawk. Grass flying still, even though it is mimicking it, it still is able to fly because, you know, kind of necessary if you want to mimic something that flies. So like, does it look kind of unnaturally put together? Yes. Is that the point? Yes. I probably could streamline the design a little more, but like, dude, I had 19 types to go through and 40 designs. Like, at some point, there's gotta be some give. Anyway, that leads to our 14th entry, Robert E. Fuller and Fosshawk. Now moving on to Ghost, which, as I mentioned with Dark, kind of difficult because negative connotations. Thankfully, I had an out. Smosh. Smosh has so much history that me making this ghost type, like, I don't even have to try. It's easy, you can understand it. I don't have to make logic jumps. Easy peasy, breezy, beautiful. So basically, if you don't know, Anthony Peccadilliform, and I'm gonna be honest, Ian, I can't think of a fun thing for your last name, so you're just gonna be Hecox, started a skit-based YouTube channel called Smosh. Eventually, they branched out to stuff like games and a variety channel that eventually took over the main channel. You get the point. But after a while, they sold the channel, which led to Anthony kind of losing interest in it. Then he separated from the channel because he didn't like it anymore. It felt forced. Less like he was actually doing something he wanted, and more like he just was an employee. Then, I think sometime in the 2020s, Anthony and Ian bought the channel back, and, well, Anthony Pachycephalosaurus and Ian Hecox gave me an idea. A hero that, while in the spotlight, appears powerful, happy, strong, a symbol to all. But then, when not in the spotlight, doesn't even bother, just doesn't care. There's no luster behind it. He's putting on an image because that's what he has to do. Which led to Apiro, an apathetic appearing hero. The purple band around the orange body is meant to mimic a corset. When it's in its big buff hero form, it's super tight, constricting the waist, pushing everything up so it can flex and smile and do all that. But when it's in its not battle phase, it just is open. It doesn't have to constrict itself. It's not in the open. It just doesn't have to put up its image. And I did something similar to this with Hirosum in a previous video, but like, I felt this one worked pretty well representing both sides of Smosh. When they actually liked it, when they were involved, and probably currently now that they're all still involved, then their sort of lackluster era where they lost the spark that made it feel like a channel. As for like how their battle would go, I'd assume it's like a double battle, but also I could definitely see their team being made up of like counterpart mons. Oh, and for the record, Anthony, I'm just joking with you. I know your last name is Padilla. But anyway, that's our number 15 slot with Smosh and Apiro. Now Rock. As I mentioned earlier, I was lost. I had no clue. I was really going to just go, okay, let's try and find a geologist. But then I remembered I literally know someone whose name is a play on amethyst. Once again, never been accused of being the brightest. Moving on anyway, Amethyscent, an artist and game designer. Once again, don't hate the player, hate the content, because I get a lot of art channels in my recommended, okay? What do you want? Anyway, I just took the I just took the amethyst aspect and ran with it. I said, you know what sounds cool and works because they're all rock type? A fossil Pokemon. an ankylosaur with an amethyst club for a tail. Bada bing, bada boom, easy. Took what could have been one of the harder typings and made it simple. That being said, it still nearly was really difficult because, well, I have the brain fish of a memory. My neurons clocked out for the day and the hamster hadn't stopped running and, well, broke the wheel. Anyhow, when it comes to amethyst, it's very purple. Look, okay, amethyst ankylosaur fossilmon, you've got to admit that's a fire concept. What amethyst has to do with an ankylosaur? I have no idea. It's just that the amethyst can make back spikes similar to what you see, and a giant club amethyst tail of clustered gems can make a club. I just thought it worked well. And it's my video, so that's what you're getting. But anyway, for the rock type entry of this video, amethysint and amylosaur from, of course, amethyst and ankylosaur. Next up, let's tackle water. Also, weirdly, one that I tend to put at the end of a majority of these of every type videos. Anyway, Jose L. Cook. He has this bit where he goes some 2 billion year old water, and I said screw it, we'll work with it. Also, he did a whole series of agua fresca videos, which, like, it is literally just like fresh water. That's what it says. But I decided to take it a little further and say agua de Jamaica, aka hibiscus tea. I'm not even gonna lie, Jose and Cooking with Fred are like some of the reasons I like cooking. There's of course other reasons, but like they really have helped kind of speed that along and get me to try out some recipes I wouldn't have otherwise. So really just an agua fresca that is agua de Jamaica made a lot of sense. And I mean, we already have a beverage Fakemon and Pokemon, because like I literally just did it for Faketober, but we'll run it back. Sinus tea. And since it's hibiscus tea, yeah, that works. Tea for tea. I added like a red and white straw because why not? It worked for details and allowed me to get the sort of wine glass aspect I was going for without really making it obvious. I also put a little kiwi on the thing because why not? It's a garnish, it works well. The pale green kind of works well with the dark red. Like, sure, that's probably not the garnish you want, but like, it worked well with the color palette. Leading to a Merstian Poltegeist, a water ghost type, which, along with Jose L. Cook, represents the water type for this video. Then, for our second to last entry, the fairy type, whenever I do these kinds of videos, I always like to include one kind of Poketuber, and even though I technically did do the Fakemon channel, I'd kind of classify that more as an art channel. So for purely Pokemon, Patters. Look, I know fairy type, you might think, huh? But it kind of came from the Mon more than him. You see, of course, I already had the idea for like, okay, Subnoodle, that's kind of his thing, what do I do? And originally, I was just like, okay, how do I do this? Strudel. Subnoodle, Strudel, I can make that work. And this is actually one I redesigned because I wasn't happy with it. It just felt kind of boring. Then I took a deep look at Subnoodle and thought, that head could look reptilian. And so I ran with it. I also mixed in a bit of Hansel and Gretel, because like fairy tales, old fairy tales, they did the sort of, oh my gosh, look, it'll teach you a lesson. Like, of course, Disney came along and it was more like not a lesson. But like the original Hansel and Gretel had the same lesson as The Boy Who Enjoys Cheese, I think that's the title, from like the Netherlands. Be happy with the food you have, don't overindulge, don't be gluttonous. A lot of early fairy tales were meant to kind of protest sin. Like, oh, if you sin, something bad will happen. Oh, you ate too much candy because this witch has a house made of candy. Oh, guess what? You're going in the oven. Like, with all that, as well as the reptilian thing, I decided fairy dragon for Sustrudel. Sustrudel coming from, of course, Subnoodle, but also Strudel. However, also suspicious. Because let's be honest, if you see a house of candy in the woods and you're not suspicious, that's your fault. As I said, most old fairy tales were meant to teach a lesson. Though our 18th and penultimate entry, hatters, and sustrootle. Now we move on to the 19th entry, which is Stellar. It's a type you really don't see in of every type videos, and that includes the Tauros and Chicken one of my own. And I understand why. It's only in Gen 9, it's only on a terrestrialized Pokemon, which, quite honestly, we're not seeing it again outside of Champions, and it's literally a nothing type. It's only super effective against Terrid Pokemon, which means it's neutral on literally everything and neutral to literally everything. It is the nothing burger of types that was just meant to be a boss fight. However, if I want to one-up basically every other version of this out there, I need to include it, which means I have to figure out something. So Stellar is meant to represent every type because it represents terrestrialization, which means you can turn anything into any type. Alright, so I need something that can be anything. That's difficult. Well, Terra Crystals, which means prisms, because they're crystals that reflect light into rainbows, or I guess refract light. Reflection, refraction, they're different, but let's be honest, you probably wouldn't have even picked up on the mistake unless you were trying to listen for it. Okay, so I have the Terra Prism aspect figured out. How do I make a pure Terra Crystal Pokemon? Well, with all those Terra Crystals, Regigigas would be able to do their thing. So a Stellar type Regi that is super effective against nothing, but also not weak to anything. The ultimate blank type, but able to take any hit. So how do I translate the every type thing? Well, you know those ones where they have like a filter that switches through characters? They're most prominent on shorts. I feel like that would work, because like you're flipping through a select pool of things, but you don't get to pick what you get. Sort of a similar thing to the Stellar type. You technically do represent every type, but you don't get to really use them. You can't pick. And we'll just go with the most recent one that came across my For You page, Paul Brodo. And look, I'm just gonna say this in case you're confused or about anything. I really did try to avoid legendaries and mythicals, but it was difficult. Because Stellar just is kind of difficult. But as I said, I have to do it if I want to one-up everyone. And then let's get to the big thing. Why does it have hands? Every one of the minor league Regis, except for one, has one of their stats maxed to 200. Regirock, defense. Regice, special defense. Alecki, speed. Drago, HP. Registeel has 160 in both defense and special defense. And Regigigas has 160 attack. Registella here has, well, 200 attack, so some big meaty paws makes a lot of sense. And as for the name, I actually did kind of have some issues. You see, there are two naming conventions with the Regis. Either it is their element, Rock, Ice, Steel, or a shortening of their element, Alecki, Drago. And I could not decide between Registella and Registellar. I ultimately decided on Stella because I liked the way it rolled better. You know, like Jim Carrey's The Mask, just Registella. But like Stellar, I didn't feel the same vibe. Once again, Registella, Registellar, it comes down to preference, but you got what I think. And I really do like this design, and I think it does do well for a Stellar type Regi. So with that, that's all 19. For the last entry and the Stellar typing, Paul Brodo and Registella. Anyway, this is Jay, signing away, forever and always. Bye-bye!